go ahead and call to order the F&A committee. If city clerk will note attendance, please note, Councilman Christensen is not present at the moment, but I see.
Online.
Huh? Oh, she's online. There she is.
I'm here.
I guess I had to get online too then, huh? All right, so please note attendance. We're all here. With that, we'll move on with the agenda. First action will be the approval of the agenda for tonight. Are there any alterations or objections to the agenda as presented? If not, no objections, we'll move ahead with the agenda as presented and move forward on with the rest of the evening. All right, first item up is approval of the minutes dated June 17th, 2025. Are there any questions or edits requested from committee members? Chair has none. Any objections to accepting the minutes as presented? Now I can see you, Kara. All right. All right, we'll go ahead and accept the minutes as put into the agenda. With that, we'll move on to a blank screen. Okay. With that, we'll move on to consideration of the claims report dated July 14th, 2025. Chair notes that I've looked through my email and have not seen any questions from other council members or interested parties, nor does chair have any questions or clarifications. Are there any questions or clarifications from committee members? Let me check. All right. Any objections to accepting the warrants as approved, then move that on to council. Seeing no objections, we'll take the warrants as presented as approved and move that on to council. With that, we'll move on into discussion. I have no agenda bills this evening, just discussion items and review of the council. So first discussion item will be 2025 second quarter financial update.
Good evening, committee. I'm Jana Walker, budget manager, and I will be sharing my screen. Okay, there we go. This is our 2025 Q2 financial update. And just a brief discussion of what we'll be talking about. We'll discuss the 2025 opening balances and how they differ from our original estimations within the 2025-26 biennial budget. Then we'll be moving on to our performance, our Q2 performance, and we're going to compare that to two things: the approved biennial budget, and then also an internally revised budget that the staff has created in the wake of the North Bend agreement dissolving. Then we will move on to just combine the two police departments together to look at how police will be doing as a whole. And finally, we'll talk about some highlights and uncertainties related to that budget. And then next steps for the budget department within finance. So this opening balance page, I've given each of you one of these so that you can look at the numbers just a little bit easier than what you're seeing on the screen. In our first column, you can see the expected opening balance, and that is based on our 2025-2026 biennial budget. About a year ago, we made some estimations about where we would be, and now we have actual data from 2024, the ending balances showing where we actually landed. And as you can see up there, there are some differences. That final column is the differences. I'm just going to call out some of the more obvious standout differences. The first one is the general fund. Some of the reasons for that difference are basically an underestimation of revenues. We have a little bit of a backlog of revenues as we work through our ERP. So I'm making a lot of estimations, and you can see that I'm much more negative than the actual. This is something I'm learning, is that my bias is a little bit negative. Some of those items include The CA Carey lawsuit was settled. We expected to receive those funds in 2025, but we actually received them early in 2024. And that's about $500,000. So that's the biggest single item of why that revenue balance is higher. There are also some other underestimation of revenues, including engineering services, ground emergency medical transport. There was a larger transfer out for ARPA, and then also some larger interest because interest rates have been so high. That's not the only thing that makes up this increase. There are some positive variances within expenses, but the bulk of the increase was due to revenues. Within expenses, I think things like our legal fees were less than we forecasted them to be, and then also we had a similar situation within community development. The next one you see a big variance is the non-utilities capital fund. Within the non-utilities capital fund, we had negative variances across almost all of our revenues. They were all slight, but the reason that we came out ahead for that fund is really our projects and our progress within those projects. So some delays in projects include the Meadowbrook Trail project, the River Trail northwest of Sandy Cove project, and then the design work on the community center. We anticipated that we would have spent more money during 2024. We have a similar situation within the Utilities Capital Fund. It's really an estimation of where we expect our projects to be. And if you see a positive variance, then likely less of the project was completed than we expected, and more of it will roll to the next period. For utilities capital, some of those projects include waste reclamation facility. We're looking at Eagle Lake Reservoir, and then also 384th Avenue sidewalk utilities, the utilities portion of those. So those projects, probably a little bit more of those will fall in 2025 than we originally estimated. You can also see a pretty large variance within water operations. There were some revenue underestimations, but the bulk of that was expense underestimation. One of the things that I'm doing as I do this, often you can click a button and get a report straight from a system, but as we're midway in this ERP, sometimes I have to manually accrue for things, and I didn't manually accrue for taxes and assessments, and that's probably the bulk of this difference. It's about $350,000. There were also some maintenance items toward the end of the year and some capital purchases that I didn't anticipate occurring at the end of the year. So that is our opening balances. You can see by and large, though, we estimated 39 million approximately, and we came out closer to 43 million, which is a $3.5 million positive variance for the city as a whole. It is important to keep in mind that this budget that we've created is a snapshot in time, and it can be amended. It is something that we want to be a living document because our best guesses from a year ago when we started creating this budget are not always as good or as pertinent as our guesses today. So two key things that we have in mind as we consider whether or not we'll be making changes to our budget: the North Bend Police Services transition. And as I said, we have the approved budget, and we also have a revised budget that we have new aspirations to achieve within the city, even though that budget is not yet achieved, just so that we can meet our savings targets to make up for some of that lost revenue. In addition, we have the Utilities Capital Fund, which, as you've heard discussed, we have a timing issue with a bond. So we do have a little bit more money in that fund than we initially anticipated, but we have to make consideration as we move forward with projects to make sure that there are enough funds in those accounts to move forward without having to borrow from another account, or we'll be deciding that as we move forward with each project. That you'll probably hear this on repeat as we try to land in the right place for utilities capital. And now we're at the 2025 Q2 budget performance. One thing to note as you look at this, you will have this, it's slide 5 in the packet that I handed out, or it's numbered slide 5. You don't have 5 slides. One thing to consider is that I am only comparing expenditures here to our approved appropriation. I am not including revenues within this. There's a lot more subjectivity and conclusions that I would have to draw myself to include revenue. So in the future, I would expect to include those, but they're not here today. The next thing to consider is that as this is Q2 of 2025, our goal percentage of appropriation spent would be 50%. So when you see a number in those two columns that discuss percent of expenditure appropriation spent, if you're seeing a number less than 50%, that's a positive variance. That means we've spent less than we budgeted for. If you're seeing a number higher than 50%, that would be a negative variance, meaning that we've spent more than we would have expected to spend at this point in the year. So our goal is, of course, to be very close to 50%, but under it. That would mean that we budgeted perfectly. If we were able to do that all the time, then we would just be amazing at budgeting. We aren't always that way, which is why we do have to consider that this is a living document, and where changes need to be made, they can be made. So your dark green columns, first of all, the very first numbers column is 2025 year-to-date expenditures. So that is our actual expenditure. Insofar as I have estimated, likely these numbers will change slightly because I am accruing certain expenditures that haven't made their way through our system yet. And then the next two columns are our 2025-26 approved biennial budget. And then those final two columns with the light green header is our internally revised budget. And as you look down the columns, you can see that in some cases we're over 50% for both our approved and our internally revised budget. Within administrative departments, one of the things I usually consider as I look at this is that the single largest expenditure within that account is our citywide insurance. And that occurs in January of each year. So we always start out the year playing catch up. And so I'm not surprised when I see that number a little bit out of whack, and I like to see it move a little bit closer to 50% and then below 50% as the year progresses. I am seeing that general dynamic, but normally I'd like to see it a little bit lower. So I would say that we're running a little bit hot for this account, especially when you look at that revised budget. I do think it's worth considering that we have frozen 4 positions that will affect that budget. So if I don't see a lot of changes soon, then you'll probably hear more about this. But these are things that we track and we're concerned about. As we move down the list.
So, wait a minute,
Mhm.
help me on that first one though. Expenditures of 3.2, budget of 5.7. We spent 56% of our budget halfway through the year.
That's right.
Part of that is the insurance is up front. But the last two columns actually propose a reduction. The revised expenditure appropriation propose a reduction from 5.7 to 5.1.
Mm-hmm. So we've gone to each department and asked areas where they could pinch a little bit harder. Perhaps one-time fees, expenditures that we can delay for a different time period. So yes, we have shrunk that budget to be able to meet our new goals based on North Bend's decision. And you can see at 62%, that's not really a number we feel great about. However, you have to consider that a bulk of these expenditures are personnel related. And so with 3 positions frozen within that department and then one that would affect it through internal services, it could change for the positive. And this is the first year within a 2-year biennium as well. So I'm not saying don't worry about it. I'm worried about it. I'm watching it. But also there are reasons that there's understanding I have that mitigates some of my worry.
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
So what I think that I understand you saying is that we've been running a little bit hot. On paper, it would look like we could be running a little bit hotter, but the intent is to slow down expenditures in the second half of the year.
That
And
is
so
correct.
They'll eventually even out.
We hope so, and we'll keep monitoring to make sure that that starts to happen.
Jenna, what is the amount of that insurance payment?
Oh, is it almost 900,000?
It's basically $1 million.
It's something close to $1 million.
Right. So we would run hot anyway because of that.
Correct.
We always do. Even so, I'd say this is stretching maybe. Yeah, I would like to see it a little bit lower at this point.
Yeah.
Within the general fund, I do see a few more that are over that 50%. And I kind of have a wait and see mentality. Of course, staff is receiving budget updates so that they can see when they're whether they're hitting these marks and whether they can make adjustments or not, or whether they can consider whether they want to come to council and request an amendment if there are changing circumstances from when they originally created their budget. Overall, the general fund just under 50% for the approved budget, and then a little bit over 50% at that 52.6% for our internally revised budget. And we would be waiting and seeing whether those position freezes that we've enacted will start to affect it in a positive way.
I'm sorry, go ahead,
You
Councilman
said
Johnson.
if there were any freezes, or looking at a CD, community development, you say there were any position freezes there yet?
There is one position, I think it's actually in communications though, that's frozen. That's the position that we've,
It's mostly like in the planning
There's one vacant,
part, that's, yeah.
is it
I'm
vacant?
worried
one
about.
vacant planning position left.
Okay. I'll look at my list too and make sure that I'm following
But-
this perfectly.
Those vacancies existed at the beginning of the year.
There were more vacancies that existed at the beginning of the year. We just filled the planner position
Okay.
2 weeks ago, a week ago, a week ago. Oh, sorry, we filled it yesterday.
So at least we have, one person over there.
Correct. We have the planner and the permit tech brought on in the last 2 months.
Thank you.
You can also see similar exceedances within the North Bend Police Services Fund, just a little bit hot under the approved budget and then quite a bit under the internally revised budget. This is the one that I would expect to really see turnaround as we have folks leaving that department of their own volition, just reading the wind and deciding that they want to go in a different direction. Those also, though, will be balanced out by overtime. And I'm waiting to see how that shakes out and what we see as we step forward into the next few months. As I go down, I see a lot that are under 50%. The other one that stands out to me is facilities maintenance. That is one of those ones that we rebalance at the end of each year. So if expenditures are a little high, they can be spread out across all the city. We, of course, would hope that this will be under budget, and that is the intent. But when really, it's one of those ones that I would, we'll see what happens in the next month. If this turns around, we'll dive a little bit deeper. I'm not 100% sure why this is a little bit over right now. Any questions on this set of,
What's the plan for home elevations?
for which one?
Home elevations, 144?
I think that home elevations come into us when a citizen has a concern that they want to raise their home, they would approach the city. And then they would then be approved by, is it FEMA or King County Flood Control District? So the city, we have that as an amount budgeted in case a member of the community comes to us for those dollars, but they wouldn't have an assignment until that happens, in my understanding.
Okay, so I've been approached by a citizen who's interested. Who do they contact?
Community development.
Okay. Go ahead, Councilor Johnson, sorry.
But the 500,000, then am I to understand that that's not originally from the city, it's from the flood control district? And then it comes to us, and then it goes to getting that project done? Okay,
That's right.
I was just gonna ask or say the same thing, basically.
there you go.
It's not city funds, basically.
Right.
Does it also use it or lose it?
Come on over to.
I just met Mona Davis, Community Development. I just met with the King County Flood Control District last week. And we kind of went over this, and apparently we have funding that we could be utilizing for home elevations. we need to use it or we're going to lose it. And we have an Excel spreadsheet somewhere that has, which we have, I know where it's at, but it has people on it that have expressed interest in the home elevations. We were not aware, to the best of my knowledge, this is what I found out, we weren't aware that we had that funding. We didn't think we received the funding, so we were telling people they couldn't do elevations this year. But now we're going to reach out to find out if anybody's interested in doing them. So I'm working with our building official on that. He oversees the home elevations and we're trying to get that rolling again. We're a little worried that we have monies to use by the end of the year, and we don't think that that will give people enough time to draw up their plans and get their, their building permits in and approved and built by the end of the year. So I'm still trying to navigate that with the flood control district. They've been extremely helpful. They've come in to meet with us and said, tell us how to help you. And so we're working together to try to figure out how to make that happen.
Okay, you're catching up. All right.
Yep.
I do have at least one citizen who's interested. And you probably have your spreadsheet of past interested people to check with too, but
And maybe they're on the spreadsheet, so I would just have them reach out to me or John Cooper, who's our building official, and we will check them against the spreadsheet or add them to the spreadsheet. So I think we just need to go in order down the line to see who came in first and reach out to people to see who may be interested, and also see if we have enough time to meet the deadline with only 6 months left in the year.
can you send me John's contact information?
Yes, I'll email it to you.
The interested party.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
And I take it, do we have plans for the tourism promotion?
That one is on hold for this year. I think our ending fund balance was about $5,000. And it would be my preference to receive the money in 1 year and then hand it out the next year. We've had some changing expectations within that revenue fund, and I think that might be my preferred way of using it.
Yeah, so let's describe what this fund is. This is the lodging tax, right, that we receive from the hotels that are here in the community with the Salish Lodge, right? And the tribe purchasing that property. They are no longer contributing lodging tax dollars overall to the city that would normally fund, right, that fund that would support our LTAC committee in essence. Because there's such a low dollar threshold at this point, it feels like that program is potentially on hold at this stage, but we'll have to have that conversation with our events planner for the most part, just to see kind of what appetite there is at this stage. So right now we've got $30,000 appropriated. There's no, till we go through the LTAC process, I think overall, probably this September, we won't understand maybe what 2026 at that stage looks like. So.
And that's our money. That's not spend it or lose it. It'll accrue.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions? Yeah, that's as far as I got. All right, thank you.
Okay, moving on. This is our combined police department. And I like to look at these two together because when we don't have revenue to cover the expenditures from the North Bend Police Services, then they are transferred into the police department at Snoqualmie. So that kind of gives you a better overall picture of how the police department is doing, how it's funded, and compares to our budget. Right now, you can see again, under the approved budget, right about where we would want it. But when we look at that internally revised budget, which is in response to losing that contract, then we're once again running a little bit warmer than we'd like to be with the departing. I know of several who have made decisions to go to different departments and different locations. We will probably see that begin to go down as we keep tracking that from month to month.
Well, and does the revised expenditure appropriation equate to the last ILA that came through?
The ILA from, it is based on the amount of revenue that we would receive as determined by the, which one is it?
So I'll just say, this is not associated with last August, right? And what we incorporated into the 25-26 biennial budget. What we're presenting here is, what does the police department ultimately look like in its ideal state for Snoqualmie? At the same time that we're now winding down services to North Bend, which is what, in essence, Jan is budgeting for. Is that correct? So I see a smile. If you want.
Yes.
Okay.
Right, but, and I guess my ultimate question here, maybe it's a conversation later, is you're kind of for North Bend, you're projecting 3.1 thereabouts. I don't think the ILA goes to that dollar figure, so that, as you stated, the difference between the ILA and our actual expenditures, we're gonna have to eat. Hopefully we get it down to a cupcake
Yes.
in the discussions to come, but right now it's a good size pie. All right. Building Council.
Does the revised appropriation do anything with, maybe you already answered this and I'm just re-asking, but anyway, with the 3.4 million that's at the bottom of the total funds, which I guess if you take out utilities, it would be somewhere around 3.3 million from
Tell me, which slide are you looking at?
so I'm looking back at slide 3 under the difference, the total difference.
Yes. The revised budget really didn't consider opening balances. It was really just in reaction to knowing we would lose revenue that we counted on from the North Bend services.
Okay, so that is just sitting in a pot
Yes,
at present.
in many
In
pots.
this,
Mhm.
yeah, I understand, yeah, in several pots, but it's a pot of sorts. And that has not been put into the 2025 revised expenditure appropriation.
Correct.
Right, that's the point at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
This is the point at the middle and end of the year, but doesn't reflect back to the beginning of the year. Yeah.
But there is more that could be appropriated then, is I guess what I'm trying to say.
It makes us feel a little bit better when we see those negative North Bend funds, when we know that the general fund came out 1.3 million ahead of where we estimated when we were crafting the budget.
That's basically what I'm getting at.
And then finally, after looking at those charts, just some highlights and uncertainties. In terms of long-term planning and fiscal health, we are undergoing a strategic plan. I know that they've been talking to each department, helping craft a vision for the future. Of course, this budget should be a living representation of that combined with council's wishes. So where will we end up? We've had maybe some periods of expansion as our city grew, and we might be in a period of contraction as we lose some employees that we have been used to having within our budget. So just some considerations as we move forward with whatever revisions we land on. In addition, we have the comprehensive fee study. We have had almost every department in the city has met with those folks to help us come to the right mix of fees, the appropriate level of fees. I guess at this point, we're not really, you'll determine the appropriate level of fees, how much you want the city to subsidize versus how much you want those who are using the city services to pay for. But right now, we're trying to get to the true cost of those fees. So that should be a revenue opportunity for the city if council so chooses. The next consideration, an uncertainty.
When do we expect to hear back on that?
Well, they're putting reports together right now. I know finance is meeting with them tomorrow morning. They're still in the information gathering stage. I would anticipate very end of summer, early fall is when we'll start bringing things to you, presentations and documents.
Okay.
With the North Bend Police Services transition, we know that we will be experiencing vacancies. We know that we can look at different things, levels of service and shifting employees between departments over time. We also know that some of the contracts we've had may have benefited from having a larger police department, or perhaps not. Perhaps we'll have non-personnel costs just split in two or less. We don't know yet how some of those things will shake out, and we'll see more of that as these two departments begin to unwind themselves from each other. We also have a collective bargaining agreement from the International Association of Firefighters, which is ongoing currently, and hopefully there will be a decision soon. I don't know the time frame for that. And then we also have some litigation in the city. So there are some uncertainties, there are areas for growth and development, and I think that we're working in a lot of those areas. One that I didn't throw on here is also the ERP. I know within finance, we're very excited about the potential for easy, ready data that can be shared with great transparency across the city. But it is a lot of work to get that up and off the ground, and we're in the middle of it. In fact, we just kicked off a new segment today for grants and contracts and project accounting, which I am very excited about. And that's one of our next steps, actually. So within budget, financial reporting, I'm working on quarterly reports issuance now that we have 2024 data really locked down. We have our revenues and our expenditures set. And so I'm working on getting those out to you. Also, there's some ERP reporting components that will make things that take me sometimes hours a click of the button away. So I'm excited to get those pushed out to the city. And also some continued internal monitoring reports like the one that you just saw that are going out to all the department heads so that they can see where they are and what's happening within their department financially. For ERP, we do have 3 big things coming up. The grants, contracts, and project accounting kicked off today and should take into the fall, I believe. After that, we have utility billing, which may be late 2025, early 2026 starting. And then we have the business licensing and tax. And then finally, things that will come back to you, mid-biennium budget report and amendment will probably be headed your way late this fall as well.
Madam Mayor?
I think you were also doing a B&O audit as well as business licensing audit to ensure that everyone is paying their
Yes.
fair share and signing up for business licenses, right?
Right. And it wouldn't be a budget presentation without some talk of the balanced budget. So of course, our goal is always that ongoing revenues are covering ongoing expenditures. And when we have the surplus funds in our opening account balance, sometimes we look at those as one-time funds. So we want to make sure that we don't have any structural imbalances, that everything, all the money that we receive within 1 year can fund all the city's operations. And that is always our goal. And within both the approved 25-26 budget and that internally revised budget, we have achieved that. And we're hoping, as you've seen, that that internally revised budget can start to, the picture can firm up a little bit and we can start to see positive variances so that we can match that and going forward into the future. And then there's always the balance, the overarching balance that we want.
Go back a page, please.
Mhm.
This is direct quote out of our section 55.4.
I believe it is.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
We want to match our levels of service with our economic development, with our revenues, so that we are structurally sound. And that means a lot of different things. Of course, it means we don't want to be too reliant on property taxes, which have caps. We don't want to be too reliant on sales tax revenue, which are subject to economic downturns. We want to have balance within our finance. We want to make sure that economic development is happening so that the burden isn't solely borne by residents. And that's why this graph is so important, just to consider, especially at your level, where we want to be, what we want to do as we move forward with our budget decisions. So what financial strategies do councils use to maintain a balanced budget over time? They optimize levels of service, they develop economically, and they enhance revenues. And I think we're attempting to do a lot of those right now. And it's busy work, it's fun work. Any final questions?
Love to have a email copy of your presentation, if you could.
Certainly. And I do have a question for you. I did not put this on the council agenda. Is this something you want me to present in council?
Yeah, at least, these 3 slides. Yeah,
Okay.
so that they're fully aware of what we're up to.
Okay.
And next week looks to be a light agenda, so I'm jinxing it by saying that, but Councilman
I'd say-
Johnson?
Yeah, definitely just hitting the things that are, $1 or $2 million off of what we
$1 or $2
originally,
million.
Okay.
The big percentage differences that are up in the 60s. I think that'd be nice.
Thank you.
Good job. All right. We have a flag policy discussion.
May I start?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So some local governments will periodically fly other non-governmental flags such as the pride flag or commemorative flags. Generally, when a local government chooses to fly a flag on agency property, this is considered government speech. Unlike the public's First Amendment right to freedom of speech, the government is not required to display any and everything that is requested by members of the public, nor does the government need to follow flag display requests at all. Rather, a local government has discretion to fly non-governmental flags and commemorative flags of its choosing. Importantly, if a local government chooses to fly certain flags, it should have clear policies regarding the flag selection process. The recommendation would be to have a set list of flags that the mayor may direct to be flown on city property. A US Supreme Court decision looked at the city of Boston's flag display policy or lack thereof and held that the city's refusal to fly a religious flag violated the plaintiff's First Amendment rights when the city had indiscriminately allowed other flags to be flown at the request of the public. So this came up because last month, we're now in July, but last month was June. Some cities choose to fly pride flags, and so that was how this came up. This is a policy decision for council to make in terms of which flags would be listed in a policy that could be flown. Options could include staying with the United States flag, the United States of America flag, state of Washington flag, and the Snoqualmie flag. There's other options such as the Pride flag, Juneteenth flag, local professional or high school sports teams, tribal flag with permission of the tribe or other sovereign nations. Thank you.
Councilman Johnson?
Yeah, I think that it's really important to note that almost every city in our area flies at least the pride flag. I am not sure. I didn't look into the Juneteenth flag, but I believe that that's also fairly standard in our area. In fact, the only city in Snoqualmie Valley that I couldn't confirm whether or not they actually fly the pride flag was North Bend, but Carnation, Duval, going further south, Maple Valley, Black Diamond, Issaquah, Sammamish. The list just kind of goes on. And then there's just kind of Snoqualmie sitting here not doing it. I think it's a very important symbol for people in our community to know that they're not invisible, that they're seen, at least by people around here. So I would support the American flag, the Washington State flag, Snoqualmie flag, the Pride flag, and the Juneteenth flag. As far as the local sports teams, high school and professional, I am somewhat indifferent. Being an old 49er fan, I doubt that we're going to fly that flag. So that's kind of what I think that should be on the table. And perhaps we include that, and what we could do in an agenda bill coming forward is we have that list. And if council wants to either take off from that list or add to that list, I think that would be an appropriate way to go forward.
Okay, so I thought we had a conversation. And I thought we kind
We
of
talk about that.
settled on a list.
Can we talk about that?
Can you say the list? Because
I am not the secretary of this or the council meeting. If we're having discussions, I'm expecting you guys to take notes what those discussions are as appropriate. Again, we had a discussion on the flag policy before, had discussions of what was appropriate and what we thought like. We had potentially other sovereign flag nations on there and just left it generic. So I'm confused of why I'm starting the conversation from ground zero versus step two when I did step one.
Okay, I'm sorry, Mayor Pro Tem Holloway, I didn't mean to say that I wanted you to act as the secretary of the meetings. So, when there's something that involves potential litigation, we have a conversation in executive session. If you'd like to make that discussion of the list of flags that you think should be, that can now be discussed publicly. But I believe the conversation you're alluding to was not made in public. It was,
Piece, but it was a council discussion. I mean, am I to ignore it because it happened in the executive session if we're still approaching the same subject?
I'm just trying to say that that was not public. So if you could make that list public now, that's okay to do, is what I was trying to explain.
Go ahead, Councilor.
Just real quick, I think that the list that that I given, I think covered it that I'm aware of. So that'd be,
I'm not sure the Juneteenth was there, the
I
Pride was
believe
there.
it
and
was.
Other sovereign, other
was.
flags of other sovereign entities.
Oh, that's right. Yes, thank you for adding the last one there. Yeah, the Juneteenth was.
Juneteenth was, okay.
Yeah. And then the other flags of other sovereign
If
entities.
South Korea wants to come visit
Oh.
again, we could fly their
Did
flag.
we lose Councilmember Christensen?
Carrie, you had your hand up? Or you hung up? All right, she probably had stuff at home.
Yeah, that happens.
Is the intent, so what was the intent of the discussion tonight? Was to prep this to go to council again, or to just have the discussion here?
It was to have the discussion here regarding which flags, or if there is a desire to have a flag policy.
I'm 6'1", half dozen, yeah, I tell you, that's got truth. And so I'm still stuck at it. If we want to break to get into public discourse at this stage, I would request that prior discussion in executive session be exposed, at least to the extent of the list of flag types that we had previously talked with the rest of council.
Right,
Okay, and that be the starting basis of the conversation in FNA.
yeah, I don't think there's a legal risk to talk about the list of flags.
I don't think so either. Which is why I didn't have it in executive session in my head. All right, were there any notes, or are we just going from recollection of the executive session?
So,
I have some, but I think Councilor Christensen's
Yeah, I
back,
think
if she has a comment.
Oh, Carrie, you're back. Did you have a question? Do you have audio?
Sorry, I'm having all sorts of computer issues. So I was not a party to the original conversation. So I'm happy to discuss it further, but I would also be supportive of having something from outside on there as well. But apologies because I wasn't part of the original conversation.
Go ahead, Councilor Johnson.
So just then for Councilmember Christensen, I believe that the list that we are talking about, in case you didn't hear it, is the US flag, state of Washington, city of Snoqualmie, the pride flag, Juneteenth, local professional and high school teams, and other local tribal sovereign flags, I think was effectively the list that was that's been presented. And I think that we should just bring that to council, and then if something is desired by the majority of the council to be stricken or added to that list, then so be it. That'd be my recommendation.
I think there's also sister cities if we have
Oh,
one.
yep, sister cities.
In any other countries. And possibly POW. I think
Yeah,
that-
other sovereign entities and that left it,
Yeah.
if the,
That's true. Good point.
if the tribe wanted to come and have a meeting with us and want the flag up while they're having a meeting with us, we could. They are sovereign entity. All right, Carrie, you have another question?
Yeah, just has anybody spoken to the tribe about that yet?
I think listing it as other sovereign entities left it generic enough that it
Right.
didn't force a conversation.
Okay. All right.
The way I've seen other cities do it, it's if the tribe gives consent and provides the flag. So I would not recommend just getting a copy of the Snoqualmie tribe flag and
Right.
flying it
Yeah.
without their
Right,
their
of course.
consent.
With the exception of city, state, oh, county, yeah, county's got a flag. Yeah, any other sovereign entity, we should have their permission and agreement of what that flag is. Preferably they provide it before we fly it. So as not to inadvertently insult.
Yeah, sure.
Carrie, you have another?
Yeah, and then just also if we're going to go down that route, just making sure that we understand how they would like us to treat their flag, right? And make sure
Right.
that we're in compliance with all of all of the indicators of respect as they'd like to see it treated.
All right, Councilor Johnson.
Yeah, and I think same goes for other entities besides the tribe, how they would like their flag cared for. And also kind of getting to something that Mayor Pro Tem was talking about, even who you purchase a flag from could end up being something that is offensive for whatever reason that we don't know if we go and just buy it ourselves, off of Amazon or whatever else. So yeah, I think just making sure that we're not insulting anyone and doing things properly.
I guess I would propose we take a step back because we're going to step further than the prior conversation in that I am leery about the city does not have a sports team. And that's a somewhat undefined term. Non-affiliated intramural teams, we're gonna do flags. If they have a flag, we're gonna fly them, or there's only school district. And do we do kindergarten, elementary, high school?
Yeah.
There's a lot of flags, so I think they have a venue for their rallies, call it, or was it circle around the flag events? What they're talking flag, that may be something we don't necessarily need to get into. Cause it could get a little tricky. Go ahead.
Yeah, I absolutely hear that. And my only recommendation is to just bring to council what we had to make those determinants rather than us in F&A taking something off the list. Does that make sense?
Right, I don't remember that we had sports flags on the list.
I
out of
believe that we
executive
did.
session.
It was, some people didn't really want sports flags,
Right. I'm just saying that that was on the original list.
Okay.
right?
Bring it
that
forward.
came to
We'll have
us.
discussion in council.
Right. And I'm not saying that I disagree at all. Just that I think that that'd be the best way to do it, I think, is to have stuff there. We take off, we add as a council. In full view of the public.
May I ask a clarifying
Yeah, go ahead.
question? So would you prefer professional or school sports, or just have it all listed and then we can subtract from that when we get to the full council?
We're gonna hang a 12 flag up there?
I-
I mean, it's open for discussion. I would strongly recommend not doing it. But let's have that discussion in council. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's my only point is that absolutely I hear that. I just think that what was on that list was professional and local sports teams. I think it said high school, but I don't remember clearly enough. Just one way or the other, but yeah.
Okay, let's have the discussion in public forum and come to a final list.
Should we move it out to maybe August or early September? Because it,
Yeah, June passed, so.
right, this is July, so should
Yeah.
we do maybe August or September? We'll probably push it out. Because there's some other things on our plate.
Gonna jinx it again. You got a pretty light agenda next week. I mean, guys, this really shouldn't be, we've devoted more time to this conversation than the value of the decision already. Holloway's opinion.
So let's just do it next week.
Let's just do it next week and be done with the thing. We can then come with agenda bill, codify it, whatever afterwards. Let's settle on the list next week.
Okay. So are we, I just want to clarify, you don't want you just want a discussion, a full council discussion at the council meeting?
To settle on the list of flags.
And
Okay.
then,
And
I
not
didn't,
agenda
I
bill yet.
was assuming having an agenda bill already for that list to plug into and become codified was pushing it a bit much for tonight.
Yeah. Oh, I got a eyebrow. May I call on Madam Clerk?
Excuse me?
I got an eyebrow raised from Madam Clerk. May I check in with her if that's going to work?
Depends on
for-
which eyebrow. Yeah, right or left?
Well, yeah, we wouldn't have the agenda bill ready for next week.
Okay.
Okay, that's,
Okay.
I'm just,
there we
I,
go.
Oh, we can certainly have a discussion.
we can have discussion. Let's
Okay.
have discussion, settle on the list. We can do the agenda bill later.
We
I'm fine
do
with
the agenda bill and put it perhaps on the next committee to go to the following council with the agenda bill.
Yeah,
I'm neutral among the options and trust in your judgments. Go ahead, Councilman Johnson.
yeah, I think once we have the list, then staff can draft an agenda bill and bring
Yeah,
it back to
and-
us.
I think from there we can act as if the list was set in stone and then set it in stone at a time appropriate. Otherwise, it's a filler statement of work while you're getting real important things done.
Is that on FNA or committee of the whole?
Oh, sure, let's do F&A, have fun. Will you have a discussion agenda bill with the list in it attached to the agenda?
We can do a separate list of flags, but there won't be an agenda bill for next week.
Okay, we've just, in past, we've done agenda bills for discussion, but not, well. And it confused me when we did, so that's probably why I'm pausing here, because we did an agenda bill just for discussion and no action on a prior item. But let's just, all right, just mark it as discussion on the agenda. Go ahead, Councilman Johnson.
Another possibility would be perhaps to have the list in like a memo or something like that. So that we have something to refer to as a document.
All right, with that, I think that was our discussion item for tonight.
Let's,
We'll
Have
move
her-
on to,
I just wonder if Councilman Chris had anything else, but I'm sorry, your chair.
did she have her hand up?
Sorry. go
You
ahead.
still with us, Kara?
I am. Thank you, and I'm fine. Thank you.
All right, let's move on to draft agenda or review the council agenda for next week. Council regular meeting starting at 6 PM. We'll have a roundtable. This will be July 14th. Roundtable will be an executive session. Is that a firm at this stage? All right. Executive session. From there, we'll adjourn. We'll go into regular council meeting at 7 PM. Call to order, roll call, pledge of allegiance, agenda approval, public hearing presentations, presentation of best starts for kids. And then public comment. Consent agenda consists of approve the council meeting minutes dated June 23, 2025. Approve the claims report dated July 14th, 2025. Public Safety Committee has no agenda bills. Community Development has agenda bill 25069, Historic Downtown Color Palette Resolution. Public Works at this moment is clear. F&A will have a discussion on flag policy. Committee of the whole will be clear. We'll then have reports, mayor's reports, commission committee liaison reports, department reports for a month of June 2025, and with potential of an executive session at the end, adjourning from there. Are there any alterations?
Public Safety Committee has the 4th of July activities report added from the Public Safety Committee.
That would be good. And did mayor and city administrator see the latest email concerning fireworks?
Yes.
Okay.
The one that came in on the 5th of July.
I,
Threw me when you said latest, sorry.
Fourth.
The one that are,
There was some on the fourth, but then the last one I saw was on the fifth.
the one that our fire chief has already
this
addressed.
was the fourth that I will forward it to you.
Okay.
There are, comments of concern in there.
We believe he addressed it at the Public Safety Committee, but he can also address it at council.
I'm sorry, repeat.
We believe the fire chief addressed it last night in public safety, but we can also have him address it at council. If it's the one I'm thinking of.
This is at least asking why, this is a yearly recurrence and there's been no action.
It was addressed last night at public safety, but we'll make sure he includes it as part of the 4th of July report.
Okay. Any other items? You'll make the changes as we discussed on the agenda. Again, I'll jinx it third time. It seems to be a light agenda. We'll see how it goes. Any other items for discussion before the committee? Hearing none, are there any objections if we adjourn? Hearing no objections, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.